As always, fam, 8 high upside players you can plug and play going into week 13 of the fantasy football season. Hopefully, you had a good start to your week on that Thursday night game with the Cowboys and the Seattle Seahawks. Obviously, we are slim pickings here with this bye apocalypse this week. Ravens, Bills, Bears, Raiders, Vikings, and my beloved New York Football Giants. Over 25 players that are going to be out of commission, not even including players that are injured going into this week. So I'm going to be digging deep here, trying to find you some gems that you can start and plug and play in almost every single position. So let's get straight into it. Like I said, I'm bringing you every single position that has high upside going into week 13 of the fantasy football season. So maybe you have a Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, or maybe even a Justin Fields on a bye week this week. Garner Mitchell is somebody that you can pick up, plug and play, maybe in a 1-quarterback league, maybe in a 10-man super flex league, and Garner Mitchell is on the waiver wires this week. Maybe you can pick him up and plug and play him as he is playing the Tennessee Titans this week, a divisional game here that, hey, anything could happen. Normally you think of these divisional games as high scoring or maybe defensive games, right? But what I do know is that the Tennessee Titans do give up the 12th most points to the quarterback position. But not only that, they also give up the 10th most points to the wide receiver position, which is exactly what you want to see here, as Garner Mitchell loves to sling the ball all over the field to his playmakers. Maybe that's a Josh Downs, a Michael Pittman, maybe even a Zach Moss now that Jonathan Taylor is going to miss some time. And we've seen the success with Zach Moss and Garner Minshew here. So once again, playing the Tennessee Titans here going into week 13, and they give up the 12th most points to the quarterback position. And hey, maybe he can give you that 25, maybe even, I would say, yeah, let's set a really realistic expectation, okay? Let's start off with maybe 15 to 25 fantasy points. That is a sweet spot here for Garner Mitchell. Anything less than 10 is underwhelming, and anything more than 15 is exactly what you want in this outcome. So Garner Mitchell, a high upside play. My second high upside play is actually two players on one team here in the backfield, starting at the running back position. And that is Jaylen Warren and Naji Harris here. Both of these guys obviously are going against the Arizona Cardinals, who currently give up the second most points to the running back position. And when you're looking at high upside here, no matter whether you have a Jaylen Warren or Naji Harris, I truly do believe, like I brought in my must start and sit running backs of this week, both of these guys need to be in your starting lineup. Now, can I assure you these guys are going to be scoring over, double-digit fantasy points? Absolutely not. But what I do know is that the running back position for this team, or for this opposing defense, it does give up a lot of points. And when you think of high upside, that's what you want. You want the opportunity for your players to get, get the ball, right? And we saw that, because I did call this last time against Green Bay Packers, and they were a top 5 at the time during week 10, and both Jaylen Warren and Naji Harris did take off against the Green Bay Packers in that week. Naji Harris over 18 fantasy points that week, and Jaylen Warren 19 fantasy points that week. I'm hoping for that somewhat that of a same outcome here. And we've seen the Pittsburgh Steelers look a little bit better without Matt Canada now. We've seen 58 days with Matt Canada. This Pittsburgh Steelers team didn't surpass over 400 yards. The first game without him, they surpassed that. And that's exactly what you want to see coming in, right? And that is something that could happen here against the Arizona Cardinals on the ground specifically. And look, the way Kenny Pickett is playing, not saying that he is getting better or he is going to be improving, but look, you hope with now Matt Canada out, maybe there's a little bit more confidence in this offense, a little more confident in Kenny Pickett, and you hope that he can spread the ball around a little bit more and get some traction going, not only in the air but on the ground here for Jaylen Warren and Naji Harris. So those are my two high upside plays, running backs, going into week 13. All right, going into my third high upside player, technically my fifth high upside player, because I'm also bringing two other running backs coming in from a backfield that you should be plugging and playing going into your lineup this week, and that is Devin Singletary and Damen Pierce. Now, before you say this is crazy, pump the brakes. Devin Singletary, I am really confident in. I think he is, out of this backfield, he is somebody that I am willing to start. And we've seen the success in the last 3 weeks and what he can do in this backfield here. Against Cincinnati at week 10, 23 fantasy points. Week 11 against the Arizona Cardinals, 19 fantasy points. Week 12, 13 fantasy points. Right now he's playing the Denver Broncos, who currently give up the most points to the running back position. So I am really confident in starting Devin Singletary, even if he doesn't get the opportunity on the ground. Like we saw, only 6 opportunities, but caught 6 out of 7 passes in the air. Now, the one that I'm a little bit more hesitant on, but I am also going to be bringing for some of you guys, because maybe you're struggling with bye weeks, right? Josh Jacobs is on a bye week. Gus Edwards is on a bye week. James Cook, Khalil Herbert, Saquon Barkley, right? Alexander Madison. There's a lot of running backs that are on bye weeks this week, and maybe you're struggling with this week. I'm not saying you should be starting him with confidence, but he is somebody that you should be highly considering just based off that this Denver Broncos team gives up the most points to the running back position. Now, I didn't love his workload last week. Only 18% of the snaps last week. Had 6 opportunities in the whole game. Was he coming back from injury? Was he still struggling, trying to come back from that ankle injury? I'm not necessarily sure. Or was he just not the guy anymore? I don't know, but if you do need somebody out there that could be a risky start or a spot start, whatever you do need, Dameon Pierce could be that guy for you going into this week. Should you start him with confidence? Absolutely not. But if he is your only option, you might have to plug and play him. Obviously, comment down below with any questions you have regarding, hey, maybe it's Dameon Pierce, or somebody else on the team, right? Or AJ Dillon, or whatever the case may be. Comment down below. So here, Devin Singletary and Dameon Pierce are my 2 high upside players. All right, going into my wide receiver position, technically my 6th player on this list here for you guys that you could be plugging and playing going into week 13. Let's go to the Washington Commanders with Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel obviously has been doing his thing and had a good bounce back game against the Dallas Cowboys on that Thursday night Thanksgiving game. Caught 9 out of 12 targets, 100 yards, or just 19 fantasy points on the dot. Now he is playing the Miami Dolphins here, who currently do give up the 3rd most points to the wide receiver position. And you have to expect this game for the Washington Commanders. You have to envision them playing from behind this Miami Dolphins, one of the highest scoring teams in the NFL, and that's exactly what you have to expect. You know, Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle, Devon the Chain, especially if he is coming back this week and the Commanders are going to be playing from behind, they're going to have to pepper Curtis Samuel just like they did versus the Dallas Cowboys. Now, Curtis Samuel has been dealing with some injuries, you know, in the past 4 to 5 weeks. And this is where we saw his first big game back from injury in week 12. And that's exactly what you want to see right before the bye week in week 14. And also against Miami Dolphins, who once again currently give up the 3rd most points behind Washington themselves, behind Philadelphia, which is crazy. Technically one of the best defenses on paper in the NFL, but currently give a lot of points in the secondary. So Curtis Samuel is my 6th, or technically 5th. No, my 6th. You're right. My 6th high upside player. All right, going into my 7th high upside player at the tight end position. That means, hint, hint, I am going to be bringing you a defense as my last high upside. So keep that in mind. Stay tuned. Taysom Hill is my tight end that you should be plugging and playing going into this week, that definitely has some high upside. He is playing the Detroit Lions, and once again, another game that you have to expect is going to be a high scoring game. When you envision this game here, especially with all the injuries to the New Orleans Saints wide receiver room, Michael Thomas is on IR, Rashid Shaheed dealing with injuries, and Chris Olave, which I do believe is going to play, but if he doesn't play with his concussion, they're not going to have any playmakers besides Alvin Kamara and Taysom Hill. And that's exactly what you want to do and plug and play if, once again, you are struggling at the tight end position. Obviously, Mark Andrews is out with the Ravens, Dalton Kincaid, and, you know, Isaiah Likely, of course, right? You have Cole Kmet is also out. Who else? TJ Hawkinson with the Vikings is also out, right? So on a bye week, of course. So if you do need another tight end, someone that you could pick up maybe, or you already have him on your roster, Taysom Hill, somebody that you can plug and play. We've seen these high upside games where he can score over 22 fantasy points, where he can get you 16 fantasy points, we can get you 12 fantasy points, and then we've seen the really bad games when he can only get you 3 points. But you have to envision them using Taysom Hill, having to use Taysom Hill because of all the injuries that they have at the wide receiver position here. So Taysom Hill is my last positional player coming into week 13. All right, and my last high upside player that you should be plugging in and playing going into week 13 is a defense. If you do play with defenses, I want to show some defenses players some love, because I definitely play with defenses in some of my home leagues, which is also really exciting at times, and that is the Los Angeles Chargers. Now, it's not sexy whatsoever, without a doubt, but they do play the New England Patriots coming off a bye, and they're also going through a quarterback change. Bailey Zappi is going to be the quarterback for the New England Patriots going into this week. But what's really interesting with some of the things that I saw is that currently the New England Patriots currently give up the fifth most points to opposing defenses, meaning that they make a lot of mistakes, a lot of turnovers, a lot of sacks, maybe even pick sixes. But one of the things that I looked into when I looked at the Los Angeles Chargers, who do have and have had so far in the past 12 weeks a very difficult schedule, there are 3 teams that they played in the top 10, and they all have scored nearly 9 points or more for the Los Angeles Chargers in the opposing team. Let me tell you one, the Las Vegas Raiders, who are currently 10th in giving up the most points to opposing defenses. And obviously things have changed, of course, with that team. In week 8, the Chicago Bears, who currently give up the 6th most points to opposing defenses. And in week 9, currently that team gives up the 2nd most points, and that is the New York Jets. If you have to envision a team like the Jets, who has gone through quarterback change with Zach Wilson and now Tim Boyle, and you think of the New England Patriots, who are struggling at skilled position players, outside of my opinion, I would say Ramondre Stevenson and Pop Douglas, you have to envision this game with the Chargers to be a bully bash down versus the New England Patriots. Right now, anything can happen, so I'm not saying that you should start the Los Angeles Chargers with confidence, but that is a narrative that 100% that I had picked up the Chargers in some of my home leagues and some of our follower leagues, and I'm starting them because there is confidence there versus you used to have Khalil Mack, Asante Samuels. Once again, they're going to be bullying this defense here, this offense here, and you have to envision, like, look, the New York Giants, who don't have a good team, a subpar defense, scored 14 fantasy points on defense this past week. I'm a Giants fan, right? And I love every single one of our players. I think we have a really good defense, but I think the NFL as a whole do believe the New York Giants have a middle of a pack defense, and I think the Chargers are there with them. They just have had a tough schedule so far this year. I mean, you think of Dallas, Kansas City, Detroit, Green Bay, Baltimore, Miami they played. I mean, those are tough games that they played. So look, I'm going to be starting the Chargers defense with some confidence in some of my leagues with high upside, but I understand anything can happen coming into this week, guys. So hopefully that helps. Once again, some high upside players for you. The Chargers defense, Devin, Singletary, and Damen Pierce, Tamm Hill, Jaylen Warren and Naji Harris, Curtis Samuel, and Garner Mitchell. Those are my technically 9 upside players that you should be going in and starting in week 13. Good luck going into this week. Hopefully you get the win, because this is a must win for a lot of fantasy owners. I need must wins in a lot of my fantasy leagues. We're trying to make the playoffs. As always, guys, it's all love.
Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy, even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.